state are you located in today? Let's just do state. Let's see what state you have. That would be great. I know we have an awful lot of people who join in regularly, like Stacy, who is almost always the first one in. You must set your clock to my broadcast. That's all I can think. How's that? Pennsylvania, yeah, exactly. So I appreciate that. You know, there's no two ways about it. We have been through a lot the last several days, and I'm not going to dwell on it, but I do want to make sure that you understand part of the problem we're dealing with is what's happening with social media. And so in my hopes of making the world a better place, I just want to give you just a bit of a education that when you go into social media, because the algorithms, and if you take a look at Netflix at the social dilemma, I kept myself from watching it for a number of months because I was a little worried what I was going to learn. But basically it comes down to it's always watching what you are looking at, because the goal is to get you to stick, just like TV used to try to get you to stick with a cliffhanger and try to get you to tune in next week and all that stuff. It's still the attention to our eyeballs. And so when you spend a while looking at a post or you click off of it, it's always looking, and it is always trying to bring you smaller. And one of the things that I learned recently, I just did a great podcast with Martin Lindstrom, who's one of my favorites. His podcast will come out in about 2 weeks, and we were talking about the effect of brands. And one of the things that's really interesting is that social groups are getting smaller on Facebook, that they're getting even tinier. And so the danger is we get even smaller worldviews, and then we think that's reality. And so, you know, the reality is that retail is the great equalizer, that it is designed as a mass market type of a platform where we have to be nice to people, not like you. And as I always say, you have to, it's kind of like you have to put the wood in the oven before you get heat. And social media is the exact opposite, which is I don't like you, so I'm going to just stay here in my own little bubble. And I think it's something we all have to be really careful of, that if our attention span is getting smaller and smaller, and yet we are encouraged to be bigger in the world, right? Because we're the retailers that are providing human contact to so much of the world, because still much of the world does want to make a human connection. Even when you are locked down, like, my God, Los Angeles County, I am so distraught over what you're going through. It must be awful. But there is a vaccine, and we have to believe there's hope coming through. And we have to remind ourselves that 1 in 4 jobs depends on what you do in retail. And that's our engine. We are the ones that can make the world a better place. It takes training, it takes education. And I am glad that you are here joining me this morning, because there is just an awful lot of distraction out there right now. And I think it's really important that we stay focused on our place as retailers in the world, and ultimately what we bring into the table. And if you are going to use social media, you understand that you really are coming into a very narrow lens, and guard yourself. I don't care what side you're on. At the end of the day, things that happened on Wednesday did not happen in anything other than a bubble of people saying we're just like this and this is it. And make no mistake, the brand of America has been diminished in the worldview because of actions. And brands have the power of familiarity. So just be aware of that. And, I'll switch gears on you right now. It's interesting. Last March, I inaugurated a new program for our Features of Benefits course, and we had planned for months and months for it to come out. And the day that it started was March 13th. Do y'all remember March 13th? When we heard that the pandemic was going to be horrible, and everything got locked down and people were going 90 miles an hour on the freeways to get home. Yeah, that was the day I did. And then all of our emails followed up afterwards. And this was an interesting week too, because all the events of Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we had our webinar, which ultimately we had 1,400 people with. So that was great. And if you missed it, there'll be a link up in the description. You can watch it on demand. You just have to give me your email address to be able to watch it. It's 45 minutes presentation, about 40 minutes of Q&A. And a lot of people thought that the Q&A was one of the best parts. And there's even a special offer at the end of that where I cover the 7 mistakes retailers make for 2021, what you don't want to do, and then definitely 4 actions that you can do, excuse me, to avoid that, and then how to commit to doing all of that. So I hope you will join me for that and watch that. Boy, we got a lot of people here from all over the world today. We've got Montreal, we've got Wisconsin, we got Michigan, We got Minneapolis, Dr. Phibbs. I love the canvassing queen, Beth. I love that. So we have a lot of people here today, and I'm thrilled that you choose me to join my bubble, which I hope doesn't feel like a bubble. But I will tell you, I've had people who have called me up and they want to put stuff on my post, and I'm like, no, I come from scientists. That's both of my parents, and I won't allow that on my Facebook feed. So somebody asked me a question about social media. I'll answer that in a minute. But I'm just thrilled to have you all here. We've got Bangladesh, I've got Africa, I've got and a shout out, Beth. That's right. Woohoo! Just for you. Nigeria. We've got Switzerland. We've got America. I'm just from Middle America. I love that, Diane. Thanks so much. Well, let's get to your questions because there's a few of them. I've been putting off this sneeze. There it is. All right. Top fan Heather says, you are always saying, and I am listening, do not fall in love with your merch. Mark it down and get it gone. Heather, you got it. You get an A plus for that. I find there are some holidays and seasons that people like to see in my shop and look at, but they don't buy it. I'm speaking about Easter and Thanksgiving primarily. It seems the manufacturers carry the same items year after year with little change. Yeah, how many cornucopias does anyone need in a store or in their homes? I feel you. Do you think I should be looking at the merch from these one-day holidays in the same way as every day? I wonder about giveaway prices to only have to buy things again when that time rolls around, and I appreciate your advice and try to be a good student. So Heather, so here's what I would say. And again, I'm not sure if you're a gift store, apparel store, whatever it is, but what I would say is look at those products as props for decorating your windows in your store. If you sell them, great. But I wouldn't find the need to having the newest cornucopia 2021. Oh, it's so inventive. This time we're using Pantone color 85621 instead of 85623. That is remarkable. Yeah, I don't see the need for that. So I think you're right, Heather. I think, in fact, one of the things I talked about in the webinar is knowing your data, and part of it is knowing your margins for the year. And if it's buying it cheap and selling it cheap and taking a loss at the end, why do that? Why not at least buy something for yourself that you like and take the loss? Fair enough? All right. Kathleen, I really appreciate your time and insight from Minneapolis. Thanks so much. Istanbul, Toga. Oh my gosh, fabulous. Portugal, Eduardo. I hope you saw me when I keynoted the keynote there in Porto. I hope you saw that a few years ago. Mindy, we normally stay focused on our store community and customers on our social media. How do you suggest we address the national crisis events? COVID has been easier to address as our posts are focused on helping our customers shop with us while being safe. But when something like the Congress riot happens, I don't think we can ignore it. What's your thought on the best way to handle it? Boy, Mindy, I could probably spend an hour talking about that, and in such a wide platform, I would make it, it would be tougher. But I will say that bad things happen when good people go silent. I had a friend of mine who might even be on this call today. She's a former client. And she posted about how personally she was affected by what was going on Wednesday. And a friend of hers must have had 5 posts of her saying, oh, it was this and this and this, and you're wrong and all that. And instead of commenting there, I sent a personal message and I just said, that's really, I hope that's not you, because that's what it appears like. And she's like, no, you know me better than that. But it's like, yeah, but you have to track sources. And for me, on my personal accounts, I'm not going to let anyone put anything out there that I don't agree with, because quite simply, we have got to stop this spread of up is down world. If I say it's green, if I say this shirt is green and you all say, oh, okay, but we all can see that it's not green, why aren't we saying something? So when it comes to your personal pages, I'm not about, that's one thing. When it comes to your business pages, I think it's another. I think you certainly can be doing like, I think it's South and North Carolina that actually have giving classes in public school about how to spot fake news and fake videos and the hallmarks of it and tracking sources, so that you know that whatever you put out there has a basis, knowing about Snopes and everything else. That might be something to do, is just talk about the idea of how do we find facts in a world where it's easy to manipulate them. That might be something worth it. I think that would be great. If it was me, I think that would be what I would do. Roberta, I am my business. Well, there you go. And so am I, right? So we're all in some levels that, Roberta. I get that. Rebecca, when do you pivot on a marketing or retail strategy that is not effective? How important is it to know why something isn't working versus scrapping the whole thing and trying another tactic? For example, if people are not responding to a virtual event, is it because they don't care about the event, don't like virtual events, or because they aren't aware of the event? Should we dig that deep or just try something else completely different? So, Rebecca, I think that's a great question. I will always defer to ask your customers, why didn't you sign up? We had plenty of people sign up for my webinar, but quite simply, maybe a half don't attend live. And if you're like me, I sign up for these things and then I don't attend them. So what happens is it falls off our radar. So I would suggest if you had a great event and it was wonderful, like my how to grow your retail sales in 2021 webinar, that you put it out there that people are still able to take advantage of it. And if you got a short-term offer like I do, then you provide the link and you keep in front of them. One thing, if you were on my list, you noticed that we had a very aggressive stance to get people to sign up for this because, quite simply, I can't answer everybody's questions and I don't have the focus that I do when I make a presentation, which is why if you believe in my world, if you like my tribe, you should go see it. So I made a very passionate place to make sure just that list. I didn't really do it as much on social media, but if you're on my list, you got a lot of emails. And I'll tell you that the people who signed up for it now are going to get another series of emails because I have an offer that will end on Thursday, January 14th. And I want to make sure that they get it. But I'm certainly not going to assume that, oh, well, it must be the event. I'm going to give them every opportunity. And then I'm going to look at the data afterwards. So I do think give them every opportunity to jump into it, make sure it's meaningful. If you didn't get a lot of registrations, that tells you that somehow the messaging was off. But then look at how many times you put it out there and what you were talking about. Was it about me, come here, me? Or was it about come, let me help you, which is what my attitude has always been. I'll tell you, 1,400 people is the highest amount of people I've ever had sign up for a webinar. And I fully believe that after I make a little push here in the next few days to get all of you to watch it on demand, that'll be my biggest ever. But it comes from, I want to help you. And it was actually done live the day after the congressional riots. And quite simply, we can't be distracted. Everyone is going to want your attention to get angry about something. And your number one point is to always focus on that customer. Smart businesses have known this for a long time. They have a boardroom, let's say, and there's an empty seat where it's always the voice of the customer. What is the customer thinking? What is our customer doing? And it all comes down to how do I provide value? That means when somebody walks in the door, you get to start all over again. But if you want to, when I walk in the door and I hear you bitching about something that happened in your personal life, or you're talking about business news, I am out of there because I didn't come into your shop to have the world brought in with me. I came in for you to say you're fabulous. And we've all seen the, what was it, Pretty Woman, when she comes in, big mistake at the end. Customers don't do that. They just don't come back. And then you tell me it's Amazon, it's Walmart, it's the news, it's winter, it's too cold, and whatever it is. When somebody was in your store for 5 minutes and nobody said a damn word to them. And taking people for granted is what we're talking about. That having empathy starts in retail. That's what we're missing is empathy. When you look at it, the statistics, we have 50% less empathy now than we did just 10 years ago. Empathy is me feeling for somebody else and being able to appreciate that. That comes from what it would be like to be somebody in a hardware store. Instead of just saying, hi, can I help you find something? I need these nails. Understanding, well, what's this guy's problem or what's he dealing with today? So how's the deck building going for you? Oh, I didn't plan it out right. My wife wanted this, I wanted that. And now I'm trying to, whatever. But just being curious. It starts with being curious. Instead of just asking, what the hell are you doing in my store? What's wrong with you? Just understanding, like, what would this feel like for me to open my heart and be vulnerable another way? So once they tell you about that, if I'm in a hardware store, then sharing your own process that you've dealt with and some frustrations. And then it's like, yeah, but isn't it great to have the final product? Bringing us from that frustration to that so that we go, oh, I'm glad I met you today. Make sense? All right, so that's great. I'm from Brazil. Awesome. Tolga asked me, where am I talking? I don't know if you're asking where am I talking from, but I'm in New York and I'm speaking virtually all over the world in the next few months. I have my first gig. Looks like it's going to be in July when I will actually be traveling to a place. So I'm looking forward to that. Rachel says, I'm from Wisconsin. We're a flooring retailer. We're about to open another store about 40 minutes away later this year. 40 minutes is a long way to open a new store, Rachel. Just saying. As a sales manager, how do you train new employees when the new location isn't ready yet and we don't have room in our current showroom for more members of the team? So, Rachel, you go to salesrx.com and you start virtually training with my program. Or you watch the video that is in the link there and you decide if you like my worldview, and then you look at the offer for SalesRx, where I'm going to be doing an intense 5-week sprint where a select group of 50 retailers will join me every Friday, starting this Friday at 11 a.m., where we will go through and I will hold your hands and keep you accountable and make sure that you don't fall off the wagon. And we make it easy for you to meet with success. We've done this 3 times now, and it is the number one thing people say that they love about it is they have direct access to me with my sales training program. So I encourage you to do that. The link is in the description there. And the deadline to join me is, you can join at any time of the year, but the deadline to join me is this Thursday, the 14th, when we will charge you the first month subscription and the setup, which is $390. That gets you up to 5 users. We explain the entire process and we make it easy. You don't have to worry about content. You don't have to worry about what do I say in a meeting. You don't have to worry about what do I do in a role play. It's all in there. All right. No fluff. I hate fluff. All right, so there you go, Rachel. And that was not a plant, by the way. Rachel just popped in on that at 9:13. All right. So we've answered that. I have 2 more questions, and then I'll see if there's any more. CA says, what is the difference between empathy and sympathy? Sympathy is, oh, bless your heart. I'm so sorry. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, it must be awful. Oh, poor you. Oh, bless your heart. Oh, and you take no action. Empathy is, I can feel what you're feeling and then bring you to another state. Right? I can understand what it would feel like to be a mom losing her son in a war. And I can put myself in what would that feel like to have to do the funeral, let's just say. Or on the other side, I can understand I'm in jewelry and I can understand how important it is that this guy or this woman, for example, is buying the right ring, because I understand the history of them and that he's been off and on again, or she's been off and on again. And this night is the most important night in this person's life, instead of I'm selling a ring. Here's another example that Martin was telling me about recently. There was a company that had a pill or something for asthma. And he said, have you ever talked to your customers? And the sales rep's like, no, we're just selling the device. Well, have you ever had asthma? No. And so what he did was he got them all in a conference room and he turned out the lights and he played a recording of somebody with asthma, but he had everybody breathe through a straw in the dark. And after about 30 seconds, people spit out the straw. And it's like, what the hell is this? This is ridiculous. And he said, that's what it feels like to have asthma. See, that's what empathy does for you. You feel it, you understand it, and then you work to get them to the other side. Versus sympathy. Oh, that must be horrible. What do you do? Just stay home and lay down and, oh, that's, bless your heart. That's horrible. That's the difference between sympathy and empathy. We're not looking for sympathy. We have empathy, which brings us to understanding, building a Star Trek world where we're more alike than different, understanding that people have all kinds of horrible stories, and say we are all sitting around the campfire trying to listen to each other's stories. That's ultimately what I think makes community. That's ultimately what I think makes the world a better place, is we can take people from here and make them better, not sit around in our bubble and then just tell us, yeah, it sucks to be us. Yeah, it sucks to be us too. I know, it sucks, and it's your fault. Oh, it's your fault. Instead of, oh, that's good to know. So how do we make the world a better place? How do I make a world that my kids are going to be proud of me for what I did? My dad was very big in the civil rights movement. I won't kid you. And my dad was a big proponent of civil rights marches. He went through and he was jailed and he wrote, but his undying devotion was, I have to help somebody else. And I think that's the same way with us in retail. Instead of taking it for granted, somebody walks in, be curious. Why did someone today walk into my store when they could have bought it online, could have done Amazon? Oh, they wanted to shop local. You're telling yourself that. Why? If you're just curious, I think we make the world a better place through retail. And that's important because 1 in 4 jobs depends on retail. And that's around the world, kids. So we have so many of you joining me from around the world. That's what's really important. Kathleen, Pretty Women is my monologue for my acting auditions. Yeah, it's a great scene. But again, customers don't do that. It makes a great scene, and it makes us feel validated, like, oh, showed that stupid clerk. But all I look at how sad that is, because the clerk was never trained. And I'll bet you that the clerk in that store, if we were to put a backstory to it, probably didn't make a lot of money or took customers for granted that in the 80s, women would come in and drop several thousand. What was the other one? Legally Blonde, same thing. What a Dumb Blonde. And then we showed her. Movies love to show that. But all that shows to me is they don't understand that you can train anyone to be nice to somebody. You can train anybody how to sell from the moment they greet them, to ask a question, to build rapport, to discover the shopper, to get them what they want, but more importantly, to add on to everything. Because just because I came in looking for this doesn't mean that I didn't want this. Just means all I knew I needed was this, except if I have the eraser and I don't have a new erasable marker, it may have been a stupid purchase. Fair enough. By the way, if you like what I have to say, I would certainly appreciate your loves and likes. If you're on LinkedIn, give me the applause. And I would really appreciate you sharing my message, because I am about us building a better world together. That's what I think we need to hear, instead of us jumping in and being distracted of the hard work it's going to take to rebuild retail, to rebuild hope, and to rebuild trust in our institutions and each other. Final question is from Tristan today. Tristan, longtime viewer. Why on earth do people feel a need to offer a 10% pickup discount? Tristan, I have no idea, but I will tell you it starts from 2 years ago, when a lot of the bigger retailers were trying to get people to order online and pick up in store. And the goal was that if they would just try it, they might get hooked by it. But in this day and age, with lockdowns, and certainly with everybody understanding what buy online, pick up in store is, and delivery options, and curbside and trunk side delivery, et cetera, I can't imagine that, especially when your goal is to make margin, which oddly enough, I talk again about on the webinar, is knowing your numbers. So I hope you'll join me for that. I'm going to take a quick look at any questions you have. If you have any other questions, I'm live for like another 2 minutes. So put it in there and I will do that. Any other questions you have, you may type it in there. Kathleen asks, what's a good formula to lift your business during these times? It can be a great come up for some businesses. What's a good formula to lift your business? It's quite simple, Kathleen. Make an exceptional experience from everybody you meet. That means the UPS driver. That means your employees first, because people who, if you don't make your employees' day, they're sure as hell not going to make your customers' day. And understanding that people buy from people who make them feel they matter. It's that simple. And it's that much. It's what I put in my sales training. It's what I've used with some of the biggest retail brands in the world, their dealer networks, all the way down to the smallest mom and pop. But make no mistake, we are on the cusp of a new hedonism, the roaring 20s, and some really good things, notwithstanding the very real problems of what happened on Wednesday. America wants to get back to work. We want to get back to normal. And there is a fringe of people saying shopping's changed forever. Nobody will be going to brick and mortar stores. We're going to stay in our bubbles. I don't think so. But if you're following me, if you want to make the world a better place, then I encourage you to say, what should I do to really make sure that I'm building that world? And then the how starts showing up. You start thinking about alliances with other businesses. You start thinking about, oh, I should go through and make sure that I am always presenting a positive image when somebody contacts me, and I'm looking for hope, and I'm looking for ways to show that. Or I give up, and now I'm just going to, focus in on the people that are just like me, who may or may not be buying from me, and make myself feel good. The reality is your loyal customers are dying and moving every day. What you need is a steady stream of new people coming in and saying, I like them. I feel better when I'm shopping with them, because people like to buy from businesses they feel they can trust and know. And I hope that helps, because quite simply, at the end of the day, we're all trying to figure this out. I've been doing this for 26 years. I believe if you open your heart to another human being, magic happens. But if you don't know that, and especially if you are hiring millennials and Gen Z, they haven't seen it modeled. So it's easy for us to diminish their ability, yet they're the smartest, brightest, most interesting people around. If you're not training, you are doing them a disservice and your own business a disservice. Because I got clients who are telling me they're up 20 and 30% because what they've done is taken the tailwind of interest in their brand, bikes or home decor or furnishings or all that, and then they're meeting the process that I've taught for decades about how to engage another human being, and then they're finding like, wow, I've never had so many people call me and say what a great experience. If that's interesting to you, I would certainly, the first step for you is to go and watch my video, and you've got the link up there. You can watch it, just a quick registration. You can watch now part later. But the offer that I have for you ends on this Thursday, the 14th. I'll be doing some other social media lives. In fact, on Wednesday, I think I'll probably do one to just answer any questions you have about SalesRx. But in the meantime, just remember this. We are about as happy as we make our minds up to be. That fear and stress and anxiety are what create the bubble, because we go there for comfort. It's kind of like if you ever saw the old Dick Van Dyke Show, he'd walk in the door, "Hi, honey, I'm home." And then, Mary Tyler Moore would give him a kiss and a hug, and then he'd trip over the ottoman. That's what social media has become for a lot of people. "Hi, honey, I'm home." And we forget that that's what it should feel like in your store. If you agree with me, give me some love, give me some thumbs up, give me some likes, give me some hearts, give me some applause, and share this. And let's build the world to make it a better place, because 1 in 4 jobs in the world depend on retail. The world is looking at us, depending on us to make the world a better place. Will you join me in that? If so, you can type in and say yes. And in that case, I will see you next week. Bye.